While taking a literature class in college, I remember very well the first time I ever studied the poem entitled Ozymandias, written by the poet Shelley back in 1817. The poem is about a great pharaoh in Egypt, Ramses II, who had had a large statue erected as a monument to him and his deeds. The poem envisions a long time after the reign of Ramses and at the end of his kingdom. I'd like to read the poem to you now. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words appear, my name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away." That poem struck me in such a way that I never forgot it. It's a scene of desolation and ruin where once stood an empire. Perhaps it was the arrogance of the king that caught my attention. Here he had ruled over a vast land and had great wealth and power, so much so that he could commission an artist, a sculptor, to erect his likeness in statue form for all to see. Yet in time after he was dead and gone, known only to history, even this great statue lay in ruins. Perhaps it is this mentality which strikes to the heart of humanity. It reminds us of our own mortality. Towers fall, cities crumble, civilizations are destroyed. What seemed to be eternal will, in time, come to ruin, until future generations look upon the scattered pieces and wonder what had gone on before. Now, to the Jewish people, the temple represented much more than merely a place of worship. It was the center of who they were as a people and as a nation. Their religious and national identities were tightly interwoven. Whereas Jerusalem was their ultimate city, the temple in Jerusalem represented the center of worship for the entire nation. The original temple, built by King Solomon, was magnificent, but the Babylonians destroyed it in the city of Jerusalem in 587 BC. Many years later, following the Babylonian exile, after the Jews returned to Jerusalem, the temple was rebuilt. It was not nearly so grand as the original. Then in the year 20 BC, King Herod the Great, who was well known for his building projects, decided to rebuild the temple. Herod's temple was under construction for many decades, and this is the temple that Jesus knew. It was truly a magnificent structure. In chapter 19 of Luke, Jesus had predicted the fall of Jerusalem. Now in our gospel text this morning from chapter 21 of Luke, Jesus, who is and has been preaching right there in the temple, is predicting its very destruction. He had been dismayed at the abuses he had seen going on there, the money changers whose tables he had overturned, the needy widow who put in 2 small copper coins when she should have been cared for from the wealth filling the temple coffers. Like the Old Testament prophets who had warned God's wrath on a negligent and fickle people, Jesus knew that the finest of religious structures could not hide the faithlessness of the people. Now, for the readers of Luke's gospel, this destruction had already occurred. In 66 AD, an insurrection begun by the Zealots led to 4 years of war with Rome, and the outcome was brutal. Rome besieged the city of Jerusalem and destroyed the temple in the year 70. This is a grave example of the false prophets that Jesus had warned against in this and other texts. Believing that they could stand up to Rome, they were slaughtered in the process. In the book of Acts, Luke records instances of 3 other false prophets who encouraged rebellion, and those who followed him followed a grave price. False prophets are common in our generation, both secular and religious. There are those who claim to know when the world will end, those who spend time and energy trying to decipher what they believe to be some type of secret code for determining the exact time and date. And there are some prophets who proclaim a prosperity gospel, that if you believe, you'll get rich. Some false prophets promote secular materialism, as if the stock market and all sorts of get-rich schemes were the answer to everything. And then there is the hedonistic philosophy. The party lifestyle proclaims, if it feels good, do it. Then there are the health gurus promoting whatever brand of fad diet or fitness program seems popular at the time. Our world is looking for answers. And the people seem willing to hop aboard any available bandwagon that comes their way. And even those of us who are Christians can fall prey to these false teachings. Uncertainty causes us to act in strange ways. Rumors fly about, and sometimes we grasp onto anything that sounds halfway reasonable. Jesus told his hearers there would be wars and insurrections. There would be natural disasters and signs up in the heavens. But he did not say that there would be more of these types of things. He just said that they would occur. And in this particular passage, this all was in reference to what would occur preceding the destruction of the temple. But his point was, this is the world in which we live. Bad things happen, but don't panic. And don't let them catch you unaware. Jesus warned the people in the temple that day that terrible things would occur, but he told them not to be terrified. Being a follower of Jesus does not make us exempt from experiencing the horrible things that occur in our world, but we have been given the special spiritual resources to handle these times when they come. And they will come. It is how we respond to these times of struggle that tell where our true faith lies. Do we rely on structures, on material things, or is our focus on the things of God? Jesus promised them that not a hair on their head would perish, but through their endurance they would gain their souls. Well, this seems to contradict the reality that some were, in fact, killed for their beliefs. What he meant was that bodily death would have no impact on their place in God's eternity, because not even death can separate us from the love of God through Jesus Christ. Now, we don't much understand this type of persecution. We're not often called to stand up for what we believe. So how do we fulfill our calling to be witnesses to Jesus Christ in times of turmoil? If our lives as comfortable Americans are actually rather cozy in comparison to many in this world? Well, we can first look at the kind of temples that we have in our lives. Is there something in which we have invested so much time and energy that we would feel lost if it were taken from us? Is there some person in whom we have placed our entire trust that we would be devastated if they were gone? Do we rely on the stuff of the material and mundane world to get us by every day? How would we react to the destruction of that temple? Nothing lasts forever. Temples are plundered, Houses are destroyed by fires or tornadoes. Stock markets crash. Savings accounts are emptied. Our physical bodies weaken. Our minds may begin to forget. Relationships end, and people die. Some future generation will walk across the paths that we once trod, never knowing we existed. The statue in praise of our greatness will lie in ruin on the hard ground as the desert sand blows over the remains. Perhaps some may read our epitaph, similar to that found in the poem Ozymandias. Look upon my works, ye mighty, and remember me. And that person might shake his or her head and chuckle in disbelief, saying, that poor deluded soul. Who were they trying to kid? And maybe for some of us, this is the key to our own secret temple. That our biggest